"Don't drink that," she whispered. "It's not just juice." Cyrus Bennett froze, the glass of chilled orange juice inches from his lips. He glanced sideways and saw Maya Williams, 9 years old, slight, quiet, with eyes that had learned to scan the world long before she should have needed to. Her voice had barely broken the silence of the breakfast room, but the warning in her tone cut through the morning calm like a siren. He set the glass down slowly. "What do you mean?" he asked, trying to keep his voice light, even playful. "Did I grab your juice by mistake?" Maya didn't smile. She just stood there, hands tucked behind her back, toes turned slightly inward, wearing the pink hoodie she almost never took off. Her eyes stayed on the glass. "It smells like that stuff they used on me once, back at the center, when they didn't want us to remember." Cyrus felt a chill crawl up his spine despite the warmth in the room. The floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the breakfast nook in golden California light. Outside, the lawn crew trimmed the hedges. Inside, the smell of cinnamon toast and freshly squeezed juice mingled in the air, and yet everything suddenly felt off. He looked toward the kitchen where Vanessa, his fiancée, was humming softly, her heels clicking against the marble as she arranged a tray of fruit. "Vanessa made it," he said carefully. Maya nodded. "I know." Cyrus looked at the juice again. It had beads of condensation rolling slowly down the glass. It looked like every other glass of juice she'd poured him over the last 6 months. But now, thanks to one small voice, it looked like a threat. He gave a slight laugh, more out of habit than humor. "You've got quite the imagination," he said, brushing her hair back behind her ear. She didn't flinch, but she didn't smile either. "I'm just saying," she said softly. "Maybe don't drink it. Not yet." He watched her walk out of the room, her little sneakers squeaking on the tile. The door clicked shut behind her, and Cyrus was left with the silence and the juice. He didn't drink it. Instead, he poured it down the sink. That night, he found himself standing at his home office window, looking out at the dark. Vanessa had long since gone to bed. The house was quiet, but his mind was louder than ever. Her smile earlier that evening had been just like every other time. Warm, affectionate, effortless. Too effortless? Maya's words wouldn't leave him. He'd taken in the girl 6 weeks earlier after a chance encounter through one of his tech nonprofit outreach programs. She'd flagged an exploit in his company's public-facing firewall. When they traced the IP, they found her sitting in the corner of a group foster home, using a second-hand tablet she'd taught herself to repair. Cyrus, intrigued by her mind and quietly moved by her situation, brought her home. It had been quiet. Not quite fatherhood, not quite mentorship, but something in between. She was observant, too observant, sometimes. She asked very little, but noticed everything. And now she was warning him. He leaned over his desk and pulled up his security monitor logs. Everything appeared in order, but maybe that was the problem, it was too orderly. He opened the home network diagnostics next. Unusual signals. He blinked. One of the side devices, something registering near the second-floor hallway, had a signature he didn't recognize. Not one of the standard routers, not the thermostat or smart fridge. It was something small, active, pulsing, and unregistered. He reached for his phone to call his head of IT, but stopped halfway. He remembered Maya's face, the steadiness in her eyes, the way she hadn't pushed, just whispered, and waited. For the first time in weeks, Cyrus admitted something to himself. Maybe he hadn't been paying enough attention, and maybe someone else had. The next morning, he woke early and walked into the kitchen. Maya was already there, sitting on the bar stool, silently stirring oatmeal. She looked up but said nothing. "Good morning," he said. She nodded. "I didn't drink it," he added more softly. She paused, spoon in midair. "I know." Cyrus sat down across from her. "Would you be willing to show me how you knew?" Maya's shoulders rose just slightly in surprise. Then slowly, she nodded. Outside, the sun was rising over the hills of Palo Alto. But inside, something far more important was beginning. A shift, not in power, but in trust. And trust, Cyrus realized, didn't always come from security systems or encrypted firewalls. Sometimes it came from a child's whisper. Later that morning, while the household moved on as if nothing had changed, Cyrus found himself quietly watching Maya from the corner of his office. She wasn't doing anything dramatic, just sitting cross-legged on the rug near the bookshelf, sketching something on her old tablet. But her posture, her stillness, the way she subtly glanced around, he saw something he hadn't noticed before. Awareness. The kind you don't develop unless you've been let down too many times. "Do you always notice everything?" he asked. Maya didn't look up. "Mostly," she murmured. "It's how I know if I'm safe." Her words landed heavier than he expected. Cyrus crossed the room and sat on the leather ottoman a few feet from her. "You said the juice smelled like something from before." She nodded. "The group home. They called it quiet time. Gave us juice that made us sleepy. I learned how to pretend to drink and hide the cups in my hoodie." He didn't speak right away. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small scrap of folded paper. "I found this under the baseboard in the hallway closet. Looked like it had been tucked behind a photo frame." Maya took it carefully. The paper was worn, the ink faded. Symbols, like a code or puzzle, were arranged in neat rows. She studied it. "It's binary," she said. "Sort of." Cyrus blinked. "You can read that?" Maya gave a slight shrug. "I've seen stuff like it before. One of the foster dads was into online games with encryption mods. He didn't think I was paying attention." Her fingers moved across her tablet, opening a translation app. "See this part? It's a MAC address. That's a device, not yours." Cyrus leaned in. "So someone hid this. Behind the frame. Probably dropped it," Maya guessed. "Or maybe forgot it was there." Just then Margot entered the room. She was tall, elegant even in her 60s, and moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd kept households running for decades. She looked between them, noting the paper in Maya's hand. "What's this?" "We think it's a device ID," Cyrus said. "Not one of mine." Margot raised a brow. "I clean that hallway every Tuesday. Never noticed anything unusual." "That's kind of the point," Maya said without looking up. "Whoever did this didn't want anyone to notice." Margot gave her a long, assessing look. Then she nodded and turned to Cyrus. "I've been meaning to mention something strange. Yesterday morning, I came in early and saw Miss Vanessa in the study. She said she couldn't sleep, but she wasn't near the books. She was by your desk." Cyrus straightened. "Doing what?" "She said she was looking for that magazine article about your company, the one in Forbes, but I didn't see it out. And she looked, startled when I walked in." And that detail struck him like a match to dry tinder. He remembered now the magazine was on his nightstand. He never left it in the office. Maya slowly stood. "I think she's been watching you." Cyrus rubbed his jaw. "You really think she's spying on me?" "For who?" Maya tilted her head. "I don't know. But if she's sending your files out, she's not keeping them." Cyrus turned toward Margot. "How long have you worked for this family?" 32 years, she said, lifting her chin. "Then you know this house better than anyone." Margot nodded once. "I need you to help me look," he said, "for anything strange, devices that don't belong, anything moved, and I need it quiet." Margot didn't hesitate. "Understood." Maya stepped closer. "I can help too." Cyrus hesitated, then looked at her tablet, her quick mind, the way she'd seen things he'd missed. "All right," he said, "but no risks. We're careful." "Careful's my default," she said softly. That afternoon, the three of them began a quiet sweep of the house. Cyrus checked the official network logs. Maya scanned for rogue signals. Margot used her long memory of every object in every room to spot anything new or out of place. It was Maya who found the first real clue. In the guest room, Vanessa's favorite for overnight guests, Maya stood by the marble vase Vanessa had given Cyrus as a birthday gift. It was ornate, not quite his taste, but he'd kept it because she'd been so enthusiastic about it. "There's something buzzing near here," Maya said, holding her tablet close. "It's faint, but it's on." Cyrus gently lifted the vase. Inside, nestled beneath decorative stones, was a tiny black dot the size of a watch battery, a recording device. His blood ran cold. Margot said nothing, just crossed herself quietly. He held the device between two fingers. "How the hell did I miss this?" "Because you trusted her," Maya said. If you've ever been hurt because you trusted the wrong person, give Maya a like for her incredible wisdom. And don't forget to comment where you're watching this video from. Who knows? Someone nearby might be watching this story right along with you. Cyrus stared at the object. Trust. That word hit differently now. He turned to Maya. Do you think there are more? I'd bet on it, she replied. By nightfall, they'd found 3. One behind the painting in his study, one inside the decorative clock in the living room, and one inside his nightstand drawer. All places Vanessa had touched in the last month. Cyrus sat back on the edge of his bed, his fingers steepled under his chin. She knew when I'd be gone. She always showed up with coffee right when I was stressed. She was always offering to help organize my files. She's good, Margot said softly. Too good, Maya added. Cyrus finally spoke. We need proof. Hard proof. Enough to hold up in court if needed. Maya's eyes lit up. Then we don't stop them. We let them keep going. Cyrus blinked. What? We let them think they're ahead. We give them something to take, she said, a slow plan forming behind her gaze. Something we control. Something traceable. Margot smiled faintly. Like bait. Cyrus nodded slowly. We give them exactly what they want. He looked at Maya, this quiet girl with haunted eyes who had just saved him from a betrayal he hadn't seen coming. And when they reach for it, he said, voice steady, we'll be waiting. The next morning, everything looked normal. Too normal. Vanessa hummed along to a jazz playlist as she sliced grapefruit in the kitchen, wearing a soft cream robe and her signature smile, the one that made strangers trust her instantly. Cyrus walked in and watched her from the doorway, his expression unreadable. She turned and greeted him with a kiss on the cheek. You were up early, she said, brushing a curl behind her ear. Couldn't sleep again? Something like that, he replied. Just had some things on my mind. She laughed gently. You always do. He poured himself a coffee, this time from the pot he made himself. As he stirred, he noticed Maya sitting on the breakfast nook bench, head down, pretending to scroll through cartoons on her tablet. In reality, she was monitoring 3 signal interceptors wired into the house's electrical system overnight. Vanessa didn't suspect a thing. Cyrus sat across from Maya, watching Vanessa move through the kitchen like nothing in the world could crack her calm. He wondered, not for the first time, how much of what she'd ever said to him had been real. She's here, Maya whispered through the tablet's Bluetooth mic, barely moving her lips. And so is the signal. 2 of them. One's pulsing, the other's active. They're listening now. Cyrus nodded slightly, almost imperceptibly. Good to know, he said aloud, looking toward Vanessa. Later that afternoon, he called Miles Wren to his office. Miles was his CFO, co-founder, and friend of 20 years. They'd built Bennett SecureTech together from nothing. If Cyrus had a brother, it would have been Miles. And that's what made what Maya had told him feel like poison in his chest. He's been here when you weren't, she'd said. He and Vanessa, whispering, looking through your desk. Last week, I heard him say, it has to match the launch date. Cyrus didn't want to believe it. But after last night's discoveries, after uncovering 3 active listening devices, belief had little to do with it. Now he needed truth. Miles entered with his usual swagger, black cashmere coat over a tailored gray suit, grinning like they hadn't spoken in weeks. You rang, partner? Have a seat, Cyrus said calmly, gesturing toward the leather chair opposite his desk. Miles dropped into it and crossed one ankle over his knee. What's the urgency? You sound tense. Just trying to get my ducks in a row, Cyrus said. You know the prototype we're launching next week, the adaptive encryption layer? Miles nodded slowly. Of course. It's the big one. I'm making some last-minute changes to the architecture, Cyrus lied smoothly. Too many eyes on the current version. I'm setting up a decoy framework. Looks identical, but the data's non-functional. Miles arched an eyebrow. You think someone's leaking information? Cyrus studied him. I think it's always better to be careful. Miles's smile faltered just slightly. Well, let me know if you need me to do anything differently. I will, Cyrus said. The moment Miles left, Cyrus locked the office door and turned to Maya, who had been watching everything on the discreet surveillance feed from the guest hallway closet. She looked up from her screen. He smiled too much. Cyrus sighed. He always does. But this time it felt off. Maya tapped her screen. He has a burner phone. I picked up a signal. It connected to the same frequency that Vasebug used. Cyrus felt his jaw tighten. You're sure? Maya looked at him squarely. I don't guess. They spent the next 2 days building the trap. Cyrus, with Maya and Margot's help, created a mirror folder of fake prototype files. The directory looked identical to the real one, even down to the metadata. The files were convincing complex enough to pass a basic audit, but embedded with a tracer code that would silently notify them the moment someone attempted to access or transfer it. Margot, meanwhile, set up time-stamped surveillance, voice-activated motion sensors near the home office and living room, plus a hidden lens inside the crystal vase. The irony wasn't lost on any of them turning Vanessa's own tricks against her. That night, Maya sat quietly in her room, rechecking signals for the 5th time. Cyrus stepped in, knocking softly on her half-open door. "You still up?" he asked. Maya nodded. "Couldn't sleep." He walked in and sat at the edge of her bed. "You shouldn't have to carry this much," he said. "You're 9. "I was 7 when I started noticing people lie," she said plainly. "It's not that heavy anymore." Cyrus looked at her for a long moment. "You think she suspects anything?" Maya shrugged. "She's confident. Dangerous people usually are, but she's not careful anymore. She thinks you're distracted, and you were, until now." He nodded slowly. "Do you trust me?" "I trust facts," she said. "But yeah, I think I trust you too." Oh. The next evening, Vanessa announced she was going to a late yoga class. "I'll be back in about an hour," she said, brushing her lips against Cyrus's cheek. "Don't wait up." Cyrus watched her leave. 37 minutes later, the guest room Wi-Fi pinged active. "She's back," Maya said from the control room in the old wine cellar, now repurposed with monitors and signal interceptors. "Not through the front door. She came in from the side patio entrance. She's opening the encrypted folder now." Cyrus leaned forward. "Is the tracer active?" "Already pinged," Maya said. "She's transmitting, and she just inserted a USB device. She's copying everything." Margot's voice came from behind. "Time to call in the cavalry?" "Not yet," Cyrus said. "We need to see who gets it on the other end." 15 minutes passed. Vanessa completed the transfer, removed the USB, and left the room. Another signal pinged. She'd sent it off to an overseas server. Maya followed the trail, fingers dancing across the keyboard. "Server's masked," she muttered. "But it's bouncing through Frankfurt, then Singapore. Whoever's receiving it is high tier." Suddenly, Maya frowned. "Wait. There's a reply coming back." "What does it say?" Cyrus asked. Maya read aloud, eyes narrowing. "Phase 2 confirmed. Final insertion tomorrow. Target destabilized." Cyrus stiffened. "Final insertion?" Margot leaned closer. "They think they've won." No," Cyrus said, a steely calm settling into his voice. "They're not even close." He looked at Maya. "Tomorrow," he said. "We let them think they've destroyed me." "And then?" Maya asked. Cyrus's eyes darkened. "Then we destroy them." The following morning began with eerie calm. Outside, birds chirped softly across the manicured lawns of the Bennett estate. Inside, the silence between Cyrus and Vanessa felt almost choreographed. She was back to her usual charm, wearing a navy blouse and pearl earrings as she poured coffee like nothing had happened. "You have your big meeting today, right?" she asked sweetly, glancing at him across the marble kitchen island. He smiled. It felt like wearing a mask. "Yeah, just a quick overview with the legal team before the launch. Should I come by later? Bring dinner?" "That'd be nice," he said with practiced warmth. "I'll be back around 7. Maya, seated quietly at the table with her tablet, didn't look up, but Cyrus caught the barely there twitch of her eyebrows. She knew. Vanessa was already planning her next move. By 9 a.m., Vanessa was gone again to yoga. The moment her car exited the driveway, Cyrus and Maya got to work. She sent another encrypted message. Maya reported from the basement monitoring room. But this one was different. Smaller packet, like instructions. Cyrus leaned over her shoulder. "Can you open it?" "Not directly, but I can mirror it and cross-reference the ping path. Looks like it's going to someone. Local." "How local?" "Silicon Valley local. Hillsborough." Cyrus frowned. "Only one person from my inner circle lives in Hillsborough." "Miles," Maya said without hesitation. Cyrus felt the pressure behind his eyes tighten. Miles Wren, his friend, his business partner, his brother, in every sense but blood. Maya looked up at him. "We're going to need to catch them both in the act." He nodded. It's time for the bait. Later that day, Cyrus called Miles and Vanessa to join him for dinner at the estate. Both of you, he said on the phone, careful to keep his voice steady. I have something important to share about the company. Vanessa hesitated for half a beat. Of course, darling. Miles, when contacted separately, sounded surprised. Together? That's unusual. You'll see why, Cyrus replied. Bring a bottle of that Pinot you like. As evening approached, the stage was set. Maya and Margot had worked with Cyrus to wire the dining room and office with high-definition video and audio. Every entry point was monitored. Every device Vanessa or Miles might try to use had been replaced with replicas leading to firewalled traps. At 6:58 p.m., Vanessa arrived first, dressed elegantly in a gray-fitted dress. She greeted Cyrus with a kiss that didn't linger. You seem tense, she said, brushing his lapel. Just big company nerves, he replied, leading her inside. Moments later, Miles pulled up in his black Porsche, stepping out with his usual charisma, a bottle of wine in hand. Hope I'm not interrupting a romantic evening, he joked. Cyrus grinned and clapped him on the shoulder. Not at all. Come on in. Dinner was served in the glass-walled atrium, with the sun setting in amber streaks beyond the pines. Margot placed dishes with practiced Gracier hands steady, her eyes sharp. The conversation began light stocks, sports, the weather, but underneath it all, every word was a layer in the trap. Tell us, Vanessa said at last, crossing one leg over the other. What's this news? Cyrus leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine. I've made a decision about the prototype. I've decided to fast-track its release and name the new encryption protocol after my father, the Edward cipher. Vanessa blinked. You never mentioned that. I just decided, he said. Last night. Miles looked vaguely uncomfortable. Well, that's quite the shift, Cyrus smiled. I've been thinking a lot lately about legacy. Who I can trust. Who's actually standing with me. There was silence. Vanessa's fingers tightened slightly around her wine glass. And that's why, Cyrus continued. I've asked the FBI to audit the entire digital pathway of our prototype, just to make sure everything's clean. Another pause. A long one. Vanessa's voice was the first to break it. That seems dramatic. Is it? Cyrus asked, eyes steady. Or is it just overdue? From the hallway, Maya monitored everything through the tablet in her lap. She caught at the shift in Vanessa's posture, the flicker in Miles's gaze, the subtle panic that neither of them spoke aloud. They're nervous, she said softly to Margot, who stood behind her. Good, Margot whispered. Let them stew. Back in the atrium, Vanessa set down her glass. Cyrus, I think we need to talk. Privately. Why? He asked. Something you don't want Miles to hear? Miles coughed into his fist. Maybe this isn't the time. Cyrus turned cold. No, I think it is. In fact, I'd like to show you both something. He led them into the study. On the large screen, a video began to play. It showed Vanessa earlier that week standing in the guest room, uploading files. Then, another clip. Miles at the office, inserting a USB drive into Cyrus's personal terminal. The footage was time-stamped, crystal clear. Vanessa's face pallid. Miles took a step back. Cyrus turned to them. I trusted you, both of you, and you used my home, my systems, my life as your playground. Vanessa's mask dropped. The smile dissolved. Her voice dropped an octave. You think you've got everything figured out? I think I've got enough, Cyrus said. Behind them, the study doors opened. 2 agents entered plainclothes, badges already out. Vanessa Quinn, Miles Wren. You're under investigation for conspiracy, fraud, and violation of federal cybersecurity laws. Neither resisted. As the agents cuffed them, Maya entered silently and stood by Cyrus's side. Vanessa looked at her with something between fury and disbelief. It was you, she hissed. Maya stared at her, unflinching. You should have been more careful where you put your microphones. Vanessa didn't speak again. As they were led out, Cyrus felt the weight lift from his chest. Not joy, just a release. A terrible relief. He turned to Maya. You saved me. She shook her head. You saved yourself. I just told the truth. He looked at her. Really looked at her. That's all it ever takes, isn't it? Someone to finally listen. That night, long after the doors closed and the house returned to silence, Cyrus stood in the study and poured himself a glass of untouched juice. He didn't drink it. He just looked at it and smiled. The morning air was unusually crisp, as if the storm from the night before had swept away every trace of pretense in the Bennett estate. Cyrus stood by the window of his study, his silhouette dark against the early sunlight breaking through the tall pines. In his hand was the same glass of untouched juice from the night before. He hadn't thrown it away. He couldn't, not yet. Downstairs, the house had shifted back to a slower rhythm. No more Vanessa's heels clicking on the hardwood floors. No more sly phone calls. No more carefully planned lies disguised as daily routine. In the kitchen, Maya quietly made breakfast with Margot. Eggs, toast, and hash browns, the kind Miss Thelma used to make for Maya on Sunday mornings in Detroit. She wanted to offer something grounding, something real. Margot placed a cup of black coffee on the table and looked over at the girl with warmth. "You did something big last night, Maya." Maya didn't look up. She stirred the eggs slowly. "I just told the truth. That takes more courage than you know." Maya finally looked up. Her eyes were tired but steady. "Do you think he's angry at me?" Margot paused, then shook her head. "I think he sees you clearer now than ever." Upstairs, Cyrus's phone rang. He answered it with a heavy breath. "Mr. Bennett, this is Special Agent Lori Jensen. Just following up." "I'm listening." "Vanessa and Miles are both in custody. We've begun searching Miles's properties. The digital evidence you provided plus the footage will fast-track the charges. But there's more." Cyrus turned toward the desk. "Go on." "We found a financial trail, overseas accounts, a secondary shell company under your foundation's name. Your name." Cyrus felt his heart slow. "They were using your reputation to funnel funds," Jensen continued. "And Vanessa had help beyond Miles. There's someone on your board, possibly more than one, signing off these transfers. We don't know who yet, but they tried to erase the trail. If not for your daughter, for Maya wouldn't have found it." Cyrus lowered himself into the chair. His voice, when it came, was quiet. "Keep me updated. I'll be ready." After the call ended, he sat in silence. The room felt too large, too quiet. He opened the drawer and pulled out an old photo phone he hadn't touched in years. It was of him, younger, standing beside his late wife, Janelle, holding a toddler at the beach. His real daughter. Her name had been Erin. He hadn't spoken that name in a long time. The ache in his chest returned with a quiet, familiar sting. Moments later, a gentle knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he said. Maya peeked her head through, her voice soft. "Can I sit?" He nodded. She stepped inside and crossed the room, carefully taking the seat opposite his desk. She wore a pale yellow hoodie and jeans too big for her. Her braids were tied up, her eyes a little unsure. Cyrus looked at her for a long time before speaking. "You never owed me anything, Maya. You understand that, right?" She nodded. "I know, and yet, you saved everything. I didn't want you to get hurt," she said. "You were kind to me when you didn't have to be." That shouldn't be rare," he murmured. Silence passed between them. Then Maya leaned forward. "There's something I need to tell you." Cyrus's brows rose. "Go ahead." She took a shaky breath. "Vanessa tried to give me money. Twice. She wanted me to keep quiet about something I saw on her laptop. I didn't take it. I just watched." Cyrus nodded slowly. "You saw the account transfers?" I saw a video. Of you. Sleeping. The footage was close. Too close. Like it was from inside your room." Cyrus's hand tightened around the edge of the desk. "She had a backup drive," Maya continued. "It's in her car, behind the license plate. I saw her hide it." Without a word, Cyrus stood and reached for his keys. "Wait," Maya said. "Let me come with you." He hesitated, then nodded. They walked to the garage in silence. The air smelled faintly of pine oil and cold steel. Vanessa's luxury SUV was still parked inside, untouched since her arrest. Cyrus opened the driver's door, then knelt to examine the plate. A few twists of a screwdriver, and there it was. A small black flash drive, taped behind the steel frame. He pulled it free, holding it up to the light. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "What if there's more?" Maya asked. "Then we burn it all down." Cyrus said quietly. Together. Later that evening, in the study, they plugged the drive into an isolated laptopone with no network access. What they found made Maya gasp. Videos. Dozens of them. Not just of Cyrus, but of board members, associates, government officials each, in moments of vulnerability. Conversations, arguments, secrets. Vanessa had been building a trove, not just for manipulation, for leverage. Maya looked away, sickened. Cyrus closed the lid of the laptop slowly, his face unreadable. She was preparing for war, he said. Maya's voice trembled. And you were the weapon. He met her eyes. Not anymore. In the days that followed, Cyrus began a quiet, deliberate process. He resigned from 2 boards, fired 3 executives, called private meetings with every major partner. Bit by bit, he rebuilt the walls of his world, but this time, from stone instead of glass. Maya stayed by his side, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Cyrus arranged for her schooling, assigned her a private tutor, and gave her the one thing she'd never had, a voice that mattered. One night, weeks later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Maya stood on the back patio with a blanket over her shoulders. Cyrus joined her. Cold? He asked. A little. He handed her a mug of cocoa. She took it, then looked up at him. Do you think people can change? I think people can choose, he replied. That's the difference. She nodded slowly, her eyes reflecting the porch lights. For the first time in years, Cyrus felt peace, not because the storm was over, but because someone had helped him see it coming, and he'd chosen to stand in the rain. The rain had returned that night, not loud and furious like before, but steady, quiet, like a whisper against the windows of the Bennett estate. Cyrus stood in the dining room, alone, a folder in his hands. Inside were names he once trusted, names tied to the very betrayal that almost consumed him. Margot entered carrying 2 mugs of chamomile tea. She noticed his silence. It's late, Mr. Bennett. I know. He turned the folder slightly in his hands. I've been going through the list Maya helped piece together, from the flash drive. Margot's brow furrowed. And? It's worse than I imagined, he said. It wasn't just Vanessa and Miles. 2 of my longest serving advisors, Harvey Cross and Evelyn Sloan, have signed documents authorizing overseas disbursements through a dummy shell. Margot placed the mugs down and sat across from him. I always felt Evelyn was too polite to be real. She helped me set up the trust in 2003. I asked her to oversee the college scholarship fund. She used it to launder money. Margot's lips tightened. So, what now? I confront them, he said. One by one. Alone? Number. He looked up. Not anymore. The next morning, the sun rose shyly behind a curtain of silver clouds. Cyrus pulled into the parking lot of Bennett Capital Group. The building stood tall, sterile, glass-clad empire he had built with his hands, now hiding the rot within its walls. Inside, the boardroom was already occupied when he arrived. 12 individuals sat waiting, murmuring, sipping coffee from their polished tumblers. Harvey Cross sat at the far end, his eyes shadowed with quiet calculation. Evelyn Sloan sat poised beside him, wearing her signature silk scarf and that same glassy smile. Cyrus entered and placed a leather binder on the table without a word. The room fell into silence. Thank you for coming, he began. Today, I'm not here as your CEO. I'm here as the man you nearly destroyed. Evelyn straightened slightly. Cyrus, what is this about? He opened the binder and slowly slid 2 copies of signed authorizations down the table. Harvey's fingers twitched. These are your signatures, Cyrus said, his voice calm but steady. Approving the rerouting of $8 million from our education fund to a shell in the Cayman Islands, the same account Miles de Veru used to launder Vanessa's cut. A few board members exchanged nervous glances. Harvey leaned back. That's a serious accusation. I'm not accusing, Cyrus said, eyes locked on him. I'm stating a fact. He pressed a button on a small device in his pocket. A speaker clicked to life, and Vanessa's voice filled the room. We'll use Evelyn for the authorizations. She owes me. Harvey too. They won't ask questions. Cyrus is too distracted chasing philanthropy and press interviews. The room went still. Cyrus paused the audio. Effective immediately, he continued. You are both relieved of your positions. Legal counsel will follow up regarding criminal proceedings. Evelyn opened her mouth, but Cyrus raised a hand. Don't, he said. Not a single word. I trusted you. I defended you. His voice cracked slightly, but he didn't look away. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed the children we promised to help, the veterans we swore to honor, the entire community that built this company with their faith. Security quietly entered and escorted both Evelyn and Harvey out. Neither resisted. After the door shut, the room remained frozen. Cyrus turned to the remaining members. Anyone else who's hiding something, this is your only chance. Come clean now. Nobody spoke. Cyrus nodded. Then let's get back to work. But this time, we build with honesty. That afternoon, as Cyrus left the building, he saw Maya sitting outside near the fountain, reading a paperback copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. She looked up as he approached. How'd it go? She asked. They're gone. She nodded once and closed the book. You did it. No, he said. We did. Maya stood, hesitating. Do you ever regret building all this? Cyrus looked at the headquarters behind him, then at her. I regret not watching closer. Ugh. They walked in silence for a few moments. Then Maya said, I think we should do something. Like what? Take that education, fund the real one, and visit the schools it's supposed to help. See the kids. Hear their stories. Cyrus smiled. You're becoming a real troublemaker, you know that? She grinned. Guess I've had a good teacher. The next week, they traveled. Not in private jets or black limousines, but in a rented SUV, stopping at small schools in towns like Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and Gallup, New Mexico. Places with cracked basketball courts and tiny libraries run by one person. Maya spoke to students, asked questions, listened closely. And Cyrus? He watched, quietly, deeply, as if learning the shape of the world all over again. One day, in a school in rural Mississippi, a boy named Andre looked at Cyrus with wide eyes. Are you really the man on the news? The one with the glass tower in LA? Cyrus crouched beside him. That's me. Andre leaned closer. You came all the way here? I came to see you. The boy looked down at his old, worn-out sneakers. Nobody ever does. Cyrus glanced at Maya, who nodded. Well, he said, you're somebody, and this won't be the last time. Later, on the road back, Maya asked him, do you think the world's changing? I think we're changing, he said, and sometimes that's enough to move the world a little. That night, back at the estate, Cyrus received a call. It was Agent Jensen again. Mr. Bennett, we've identified the final piece. Someone else was feeding Vanessa intel from inside your charity's advisory circle. Cyrus's jaw tightened. Who? A pause. Lucille Denver. She's not on payroll, but she chaired the health outreach program last year. Quiet woman. Background in data analytics. Cyrus's mind flashed. Lucille always helpful, always behind the scenes. Rarely spoke, never questioned. We'll need your permission to run a deeper audit, and possibly a quiet confrontation. Off record, for now. Cyrus looked out the window into the night. Maya was in the backyard, sitting under the big oak tree, head tilted to the stars. Yes, he said, but let's not corner her yet. He watched the girl he once called a stranger, and now couldn't imagine life without. Sometimes, he added quietly, truth shows up exactly when it's meant to. The next morning broke with golden sunlight filtering through the windows of the Bennett estate. The early light painted the floors in long, warm streaks, and birdsong trickled through the cracked kitchen window. Maya sat at the counter with a spoon halfway to her mouth, staring at the television news ticker. Her cereal was soggy, forgotten. Lucille Denver, she whispered. Cyrus entered, adjusting the cuffs on his shirt. Still thinking about it? She was at the gala last year, Maya said. She gave me a cupcake. Pink frosting looked homemade. Cyrus nodded. She worked the donor tables, never caused trouble, never asked for anything. She was kind, Maya said, then paused. That's what makes it worse, doesn't it? Cyrus sighed and poured himself a cup of black coffee. Kindness makes the mask harder to see. Later that morning, Cyrus sat across from Agent Jensen in a quiet corner of a cafe in Pasadena. The agent wore plain clothes and spoke without looking up from his coffee. She was careful, Jensen said. Encrypted channels. She only passed small pieces: projected earnings, construction dates, board travel schedules. And the surveillance in my office? Cyrus asked. Jensen shook his head. That came from Vanessa. Lucille never planted anything herself. But she knew. Cyrus leaned back. Why? Debt, divorce, medical bills for her sister. Vanessa offered help. Lucille believed it was harmless until it wasn't. Cyrus rubbed his temples. Where is she now? She teaches coding classes on the weekends in Boyle Heights. Still lives in her old rental. We can pick her up any time. No, Cyrus said. I want to speak to her first. Alone. That afternoon, Cyrus and Maya drove to Boyle Heights. The neighborhood was buzzing with kids on bikes, parents hauling groceries, and street vendors under wide umbrellas. It smelled like grilled corn and city sweat. Lucille Denver stood at the door of a community center, helping an elderly man carry a laptop inside. She looked older than Cyrus remembered. Her once dark hair now showed streaks of silver, and her eyes carried the weight of someone who hadn't slept well in years. When she saw Cyrus, she froze. Mr. Bennett. Lucille, he said calmly. May I have a word? They sat under a rusting patio umbrella in the rear courtyard. Maya stayed inside, speaking softly with the children. Lucille folded her hands. I assume you know. I do. She swallowed hard. I didn't take money. I didn't ask for favors. But you passed along information, he said, knowing what Vanessa was. Lucille stared down at her weathered fingers. It started with a question, something about site inspection dates. Then personnel shifts. I didn't even know what she was doing until much later. And when you knew? Lucille's voice cracked. My sister, Joan, has Parkinson's. Medicaid wouldn't cover experimental treatment. Vanessa knew someone. The treatment helped her hold a fork again. Cyrus didn't speak for a long moment. You broke my trust, he finally said. But you didn't do it for a penthouse or a promotion. You did it for family. She looked up, startled. I'm not excusing it, he said. But I understand it. Lucille's voice was barely a whisper. What happens now? You step down from the foundation. Today. And you go public. She blinked. Public? You tell the press what you did, why you did it, and what Vanessa offered you. You name every person she corrupted. You tell the truth, so no one else like her gets another foothold. Lucille nodded slowly, tears welling. And, if I refuse? Cyrus's expression hardened. Then I hand your name to federal prosecutors. Lucille stood. I'll speak. As they walked back inside, Maya met them with 2 paper cups of lemonade. Lucille took one, her hand trembling. You're Maya, aren't you? Yes, ma'am. Lucille gave her a long look. You've got courage. Maya smiled, but her eyes were serious. Sometimes truth just needs a voice. That evening, the press conference took place in a modest auditorium. No flashing lights, no designer gowns, just rows of curious reporters and a podium with the Bennett Foundation seal behind it. Lucille stood at the microphone. She wore no makeup. Her blouse was plain, her hands shaking. I betrayed a man who trusted me, she began, her voice quivering. I didn't do it for greed, but for desperation. And still, it was wrong. She detailed Vanessa's manipulation, the quiet questions, the promises of help, and the guilt that followed. When she finished, there was silence. Then a single clap. It came from Maya, standing in the back, hands steady. Slowly, others joined in. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, Cyrus stood beside Maya. You didn't have to clap, he said. She didn't have to tell the truth either, Maya replied. They drove home with the windows down, the warm California air weaving through the car. Maya hummed softly to a Sam Cooke song on the radio. Cyrus glanced over. You really believe people can change? I believe people can choose, she said. That's what matters. Later that night, Cyrus stood at the fireplace, staring at an old photo hymn, Vanessa, and Miles at a charity gala. He took a breath and dropped it into the flames. It curled, blackened, and vanished. Maya walked in with a new folder. What's this? He asked. Proposals for the Truth and Transparency Initiative. You said you wanted to rebuild. I figured we'd start with that. Cyrus opened it. Inside were ideas for community reporting, internal oversight teams, youth boards. And at the bottom, a note scribbled in Maya's handwriting. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about making sure no one else gets hurt. He looked at her, then back at the folder. Looks like I've got some homework. Maya grinned. Good thing you know a straight-A student. Outside, the night deepened, but for the first time in weeks, the darkness didn't feel so heavy. 3 days after Lucille's confession shook the public, the story refused to die. Cable news shows debated it endlessly. Op-eds praised Cyrus Bennett's restraint and Maya Williams's strange but powerful role in the unraveling. But inside the Bennett estate, things were far from calm. Cyrus sat alone in his study, staring at a stack of sealed envelopes. They were from board members, executives, and politicians, some offering support, others quietly backing away. But one envelope caught his eye. It bore no return address and no seal. Inside was a photograph. Vanessa. She stood beside an unfamiliar man in a dark suit. They were shaking hands in front of a small private airfield. Scrawled across the back of the photo in red pen was a message. She's not done, and she's not alone. Cyrus stood slowly, heart pounding. He crossed the room and picked up the landline. Get me Jensen. Now. Minutes later, Jensen's voice came through the receiver, low and clear. We were afraid of this. Who's the man in the photo? Name's Garrett Winslow, private contractor, former NSA. He vanished from official records 5 years ago. And now he's working with Vanessa? Looks like it. And if Winslow's involved, she's moving beyond corporate espionage. This could be federal. Cyrus's jaw clenched. I want security doubled around Maya. She's too close now. Meanwhile, Maya was at the local library, leafing through stacks of printed pages and old case files. She sat at a table beneath a flickering fluorescent light, highlighting names, dates, and notes she had copied from the digital archive. Next to her was a printed list of foundation donors from the past 5 years. She had circled 3 names. One of them, she couldn't shake Harland Ellison. Harland had attended every annual fundraiser, donated heavily to youth programs, and was once photographed with Vanessa at a retreat in Aspen. A quick background check showed he also owned multiple shell companies tied to offshore accounts. Maya, a voice called gently. It was Mrs. Nguyen, the librarian. Closing time in 10 minutes, sweetie. Thank you, ma'am, Maya said, gathering her notes. She stepped into the night air. The library parking lot was nearly empty. Her breath caught when she spotted a dark SUV across the street. It wasn't parked illegally, but something about the way it just sat there, engine off, made her spine tighten. She took a deep breath, pulled out her phone, and dialed Cyrus. Stay on the line, he said immediately. Get somewhere public, now. Maya walked briskly to a gas station 2 blocks away, stepping inside and pretending to browse snacks. Back at the estate, Cyrus slammed the phone down and barked orders at the head of his security team. I want eyes on her. She's not to be a lone note for a second. Later that night, back in the safety of the estate, Maya spread out her notes on the dining table. Cyrus stood beside her, reading the connections she had mapped. It was a web donors, shell companies, politicians all tangled around one name, Vanessa Blake. This goes deeper than the foundation, Maya whispered. She's been building something. Cyrus nodded grimly. Something that hides in plain sight. The following morning, Cyrus and Maya met with Jensen in a secure underground facility near Culver City. The room was bare except for a round table, a whiteboard, and a projector. Jensen clicked a remote, and a series of photos and files appeared. Winslow was spotted boarding a private jet out of Van Nuys Airport 2 days ago. No flight plan filed. Likely destination, Grand Junction, Colorado. There's a facility out there looks like a data server farm, owned by one of Harland Ellison's companies. Maya frowned. What's in the server farm? Jensen hesitated. If we're right, blackmail, audio, video, documents, every corrupt deal Vanessa's touched, every powerful figure she's compromised. She doesn't just want revenge-ish, wants leverage. Cyrus's voice was steel. Then we go get it. Careful, Jensen warned. This isn't a boardroom anymore. You're stepping into her game now. Ugh. Later that day, while Cyrus and the agent prepared logistics for a legal probe, Maya stayed behind at the estate. She walked the halls with a feeling she couldn't shake. Something in the west wing, Vanessa's old study, kept drawing her in. She pushed open the tall oak door. Dust floated in sunbeams. The room was perfectly preserved. A vanity with framed photos, antique books on the shelves, and a heavy armoire against the far wall. Maya's fingers brushed the shelves as she walked. One of the books, a leather-bound volume on art restoration, didn't sit flush. She pulled it. A faint click echoed, and the armoire creaked open not outward, but backward, revealing a narrow corridor behind it. Maya stepped back, startled. Then she turned on her phone's flashlight and stepped inside. The passage was narrow, the walls made of old brick and wood. At the end was a small locked cabinet. Inside, beneath a false bottom, she found what looked like a portable hard drive and a thin folder labeled simply, "For insurance." She brought it straight to Cyrus. They laid the contents on the desk, USB drives, photographs, and a handwritten letter in Vanessa's perfect cursive. The note read, "If you're reading this, I'm already gone, but I never played without a backup plan. And you, Cyrus, were always predictable. So I left you a piece just enough to remind you who you underestimated." The drive contained surveillance footage, boardroom recordings, tapped phone calls, and one clip that made Cyrus go pale. A video of Vanessa sitting in his office 6 months ago, speaking directly to someone off camera. "She's smart, that girl," Vanessa said. "But kids always think justice is clean. It never is. That's what makes them dangerous." Maya watched Cyrus's face. "She was planning this even before I came?" "She always knew how to read a threat," he said. And now they both knew Vanessa hadn't just betrayed them. She'd built a trap, and Maya had just found the key to unlocking it. The sky above Los Angeles darkened early that evening, as if the city itself sensed the storm about to break. Inside Cyrus Bennett's private jet, Maya sat quietly buckled beside him, the hum of the engines a low, steady drumbeat beneath her thoughts. She clutched her notebook tightly, its pages worn from hours of scribbled connections, clues, names, timelines, everything that had led to this moment. Cyrus looked over at her. "Nervous?" She hesitated. "More like, ready." Their destination, Grand Junction, Colorado. According to Jensen's intel, the server farm there housed the final pieces of Vanessa's Weeba digital vault of blackmail materials that could ruin half the city's elite if leaked. It was also the only thing keeping her in control. "She won't give it up easily," Cyrus said. "And if Winslow's still protecting it." "I know," Maya said, her voice steady. "That's why we brought the truth." Upon landing, a black SUV met them at the tarmac. Jensen and a small team of federal agents were already on the ground, hidden in position. The server farm was a nondescript concrete compound nestled between 2 storage facilities, quiet, cold, and heavily surveilled. From the outside, it looked like any other data warehouse, but underground, it hid secrets built to outlast the careers and reputations of powerful people. Inside the command van, Jensen laid out the plan. "We go in silent. You two come with me. We get to the central node, extract the drives, and upload what we need to the secured FBI channel. If she shows up." "She will," Maya said. They moved swiftly. In black coats and muffled steps, they entered through the side-loading dock. The interior was stark, with rows of humming servers glowing in the dim artificial light. Security guards lay unconscious in a back hall. "Non-lethal darts," Jensen clarified. At the heart of the complex was a small, locked room, marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Cyrus entered the passcode he'd found in Vanessa's personal files. The door slid open. There she was. Vanessa stood in the center of the room, her arms crossed, eyes calm. Her tailored gray suit was immaculate. The sight of Maya made her lips twitch into a slow, icy smile. "I was wondering when the child would show up," she said. "Did you really think you could undo me with sentiment?" Cyrus stepped in beside Maya. "You underestimated her, just like you underestimated loyalty." Vanessa glanced at him, bored. "Loyalty? Don't flatter yourself. Everything you built, your empire, your foundation, your legacy, it was made of masks and mirrors. You just didn't want to look behind the curtain." Jensen signaled quietly, his agents taking position around the room. "I've already backed up the entire server farm," Vanessa continued. "Even if you take this place apart bite by bite, there's a copy waiting overseas. You can't stop the release." "You're right," Maya said, stepping forward. "We can't stop the data, but we can control the narrative." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "Is that so?" Maya pulled out the drive she had found hidden behind the false cabinet back at the estate. She handed it to Jensen. Your insurance drive. The one you thought would protect you. It's going live in 10 minutes everything. Including the video of you threatening Cyrus, the embezzlement records, the fake donor accounts. You didn't just keep dirt on others, you kept dirt on yourself. Vanessa's face paled, just slightly. You see, Maya said, voice rising, people like you think power is about holding things over others. But real power? It's about owning the truth before it owns you. And we're done being silent. Suddenly, the floor vibrated. A backup generator kicked in. Jensen's comm crackled. We've got movement on the east side. Someone's trying to override the lock. Vanessa smiled again. I told you, I'm not alone. Before she could speak again, 2 agents tackled her to the floor, securing her wrists with reinforced cuffs. Jensen pulled Maya aside. We need to move. Now. Cyrus stayed just long enough to watch Vanessa escorted out, her heels clicking against the cold tile. Her expression never broke, but her silence spoke volumes. Back in the command van, Maya plugged in the drive and watched the secure upload bar crawl forward. It's done, Jensen confirmed. She's finished. We'll get the rest from here. Cyrus placed a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder. You were incredible. She exhaled slowly. She almost won, but she didn't, he said, because of you. They flew back to Los Angeles under cover of darkness. By morning, headlines exploded across the country. Whistleblower teen exposes $billion blackmail ring. CEO's fiancé arrested in espionage scheme. Justice unfolds at Bennett Foundation. At the next board meeting, Cyrus addressed his executives with clear eyes and a grounded tone. From this day forward, the Bennett Foundation is no longer a tool for power games. We're going back to our roots, helping children, rebuilding communities, funding honest futures. And we owe that to one brave girl who saw what others wouldn't. He turned to Maya, seated proudly beside him, now dressed in a neat gray blazer and jeans. Her eyes glistened. The room erupted in applause. Later that week, Maya and Cyrus stood at the edge of the community garden they had helped reopen in South Central LA. Kids played nearby, the sun warm overhead. You okay? He asked. She smiled faintly. I still hear her voice sometimes, like an echo, but it's fading. She'll stay in jail a long time. Good. Not just for what she did to you, but for what she almost made me believe that we're too small to matter. Cyrus looked at her, eyes proud. You matter more than you know. Maya reached down and picked a small daisy growing along the garden path. She tucked it into her notebook. For the record, she said quietly, justice isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's just a whisper that someone finally listened to. And in that quiet space between the weight of truth and the freedom of speaking it, the story closed with the kind of peace that only comes after the storm.